Welcome to the Married People Podcast, where we help you make marriage real, fun, and simple. Each week, we have honest conversations about one simple thing that can make your marriage better. Because when your marriage is better, everything's better. I'm CJ, and right now, I'm joined by our resident newlywed, Afton.
Hi.
And our 22-year marriage veteran. He's an author, speaker, and the director of marriedpeople.org, Ted Lowe.
Hey, everybody.
And today on the Married People Podcast, we're going to discuss the question. I'm excited about this one. How do I make Valentine's Day different this year? So first, Afton, I bet you have a lot of thoughts when it comes to Valentine's Day.
Why are you even saying that, CJ? I'm not even that opinionated.
I just know that longtime listeners of the podcast, and by that I mean if you've been listening from the beginning over the past 6 months, will know that Afton, you're kind of known for. How do I put this?
Yeah,
your sassy opinions.
Words carefully.
Sassy opinions. And I feel like if there's anything you might have an opinion on, I know you have an opinion on everything.
Opinions on basically everything. Here's my opinion on Valentine's.
Please.
Valentine's. Valentine's Day, let me tell you something. Before I got married and before I had a boyfriend, here's what I did every Valentine's. Ordered Chinese food, watched You've Got Mail, and I was perfectly happy. Loved Valentine's. Looked forward to Valentine's. Now, when you start dating and you get married to somebody, there is so much pressure. Like, it's got to be this flower petal pathway to a candlelit dinner in Hawaii in order for it to be a successful Valentine's Day. So, since Hudson and I have been married, every Valentine's, I make him do the same thing with me. Order Chinese and watch You've Got Mail. That's what we do every Valentine's. We don't go off script. That's what we do for Valentine's, and I am proud of it.
And what does he think about it?
He's all for it. I mean, he would probably like to do something like special. I do not want to do something special. I want to get crab rangoons, and I want to get my Chinese fried rice, and I want to watch You've Got Mail, and I don't want all the pressure of the day looming over me for all day.
I'm curious, is there any other holidays to which you feel the same? Is this a holiday thing? Is there anything? Is it just a Valentine's Day?
It's just a Valentine's thing because what even is Valentine's? Like, what even is it? Like, it's not even celebrating anything real other than like that you might be in a relationship.
You're so aggressive, Afton.
I'm not even being aggressive. I'm just telling you my opinion. You asked for it. You were like, please, Afton, tell me your opinion. And now I'm telling you it.
I just feel defeated somehow. I don't even know why we're talking about Valentine's Day, and I just feel...
do you have the opposite opinion, CJ? Are you I'm dressing up in a tux on Valentine's?
You know, we're believe it or not, we're more similar in this area than perhaps anyone would think.
Well, then maybe you should be thanking me for saying both of our opinions.
Well, I'm just not going to yell mine at you. I do think so. Terry and I, we do the same thing every Valentine's Day as well. So I mean, there's some flower things that I can get to, but I usually send flowers to her at work for Valentine's Day because if you try to get flowers from a store, good luck. But then Terry, we don't do the restaurants thing, on
restaurants
Valentine's
are booked like 6 months in advance on Valentine's.
So Terry
unless you go to Chipotle.
Terry has taken this night and is just like, all right, this is going to be the night where we have just the nicest dinner in. And every year she makes my favorite meal, which is chicken parmesan.
It's very selfish. Why isn't she making your mutual favorite meal?
Well, she likes it too, but she also knows it's my favorite. So she's like, this is going to be the night that
she does the meal. And you do the flowers.
Yeah.
That's not selfish.
But we keep it
hers is way more time consuming. Do you do something else for her?
Are you harshing on his Valentine's Day tradition?
Do you watch her movie? Do you do her puzzle?
No, we actually talk to each other on Valentine's Day.
As opposed to every other day of the year.
As opposed to watching You've Got Mail. Now, I will say, what we have in common, Afton, not just...
That was a good jab, CJ.
I can bring the sass too. I can be sassy.
Okay, CJ, please say sass 10 more times.
What's the male equivalent to sassy? Because when I think of CJ, I don't think of sassy.
I am so happy to hear CJ say sassy so many times.
Now, what I do want to get back to, Afton, people
What?
who are listening to this are probably like, what am I listening to? But
Yes.
seriously, I think we have something in common in that we're both millennials and we resist the idea of Valentine's Day just a little bit. Like it's almost like that was my parents' thing.
Yeah.
It's this big to do, the
Right.
suit, going out to the fancy steak dinner.
Right.
And we're like, no, we're kind of stiff arm that idea a little
Yep.
bit, which is a little interesting. But before we dive any deeper into that, and I want to get your thoughts on that too, Ted.
Yeah,
Well,
Ted, because you're not a millennial. So do you dress up in a tux on Valentine's?
Because you're not a millennial. That's hurtful.
Well,
I'm in my
I didn't say
heart.
that.
But in my energy I've got
That's
the energy
true.
level of a
You've
millennial,
got
right?
more energy than any millennial I've ever met.
So what's the question, CJ?
So, well, I do want to get to what you think about what Afton and I do and what you and Nancy do. But before we get any further, because I host this podcast, I spend so much time prepping, and I thought, hey, maybe someone's just wanting a few different ideas for Valentine's Day this year. Maybe because they don't want to do the restaurant thing because maybe they're millennials like you and I.
Yeah.
But maybe they want to do something different. So if you want some gift ideas, here are a few great ones that are advertised out there as Valentine's Day gifts, mind you. So you can for your Valentine actually pay to have a cockroach at the Bronx Zoo named after your spouse.
I'm vomiting. I'm going to vomit.
And their website says for their Valentine's Day promo is flowers wilt, candlelight fades, roaches are forever. So that's a great.
I am
that's a
going to
great
crawl
option.
into a ball. I am going to be in the fetal position rocking in the corner.
Let's see, what else do we have? Oh,
Afton
okay.
the cockroach.
Another unique
no.
advertised Valentine's Day gift for your
CJ, where did you
spouse.
find these? Have you done these?
Okay, you want to know the real truth.
You Google searched.
Ted found most of these. I did find a few others as well. But where did you find some of these, Ted?
Good old Google, baby.
Yeah. So, but here's another one.
As long as you haven't done
Here's
them.
another advertised Valentine's Day promo. It's prearranged funeral arrangements for you or your spouse. And their ad says, if you have no idea what to get your wife for Valentine's Day, imagine how overwhelming arranging her funeral would be. Give her the perfect gift. Oh, this is the perfect gift, Afton. Make pre-arrangements for her affordable funeral together as a
Okay,
couple.
so what okay,
That's
I was
legit.
a little confused because you don't mean flower funeral or like a funeral arrangement of flowers. You just mean like pick out her coffin.
You are scheduling her funeral together. They're saying if you're overwhelmed with Valentine's Day, husbands, you're going to really be overwhelmed when she dies. Is that the worst?
Wow.
That's the
That's
worst.
So depressing, but I would really love to hear the reviews on that page and like what people have done with it.
Yeah, I don't know about reviews for that. They I don't know if they're married anymore. If that's your Valentine's Day.
100%. I think most
Or
guys-
maybe one of them killed the other, and so
Yeah.
they got to use those funeral arrangements
They
sooner.
were really saving money, thinking ahead.
All right, one more that Ted sent me, and this is a good one. So maybe you're a DIY person, and if you are,
DIY being do it yourself.
okay, thank you.
Just wanted to clear that up.
You can make your spouse a bouquet of bacon roses. So we'll actually link to these in the show notes, but
Oh,
these are
no.
instructions on how to. You have to know how to use a power drill. I don't know if you're familiar.
Never touched a power drill.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But why would I need a power drill for a bacon bouquet? You're supposed to be able to eat it. You can't power drill bacon.
Well, I guess you'll just
You know
have to
what?
go through these
Here's
instructions
another
to
strong
find
opinion
out.
I have is I'm so over this like bacon crazed nation we have right now. Like I'm not anti-bacon. I'm just saying like why is it like, oh, I want everything wrapped in bacon. Like I want to be buried in a vat of bacon. Like why
That
is
can be
that
arranged
a thing
at
right
your
now?
funeral arrangements. That's one of their
Melding
add-on.
together two of our ideas.
It's an add-on. It's an upcharge, but you know.
I'm not saying bacon's bad. I'm just like I don't understand why it's like the thing.
Why all of a sudden?
Why all of a sudden bacon?
Do you know there's
everything?
bacon body wash now?
Yeah,
I don't.
I have
can't.
I have reservations about that.
I can't do. I don't
understand
I don't ever
either.
want to smell like any food. I don't want to smell like apple pie. I don't like apple pie hand lotion. Like I don't want to smell like a food.
Yeah.
Now, I know that was just a fun little recap of some ridiculous gifts that are actually literally advertised, this year as gift options for your spouse. But
2018.
What a year it is.
What a year it is.
But the truth is, Ted, is we see all these things advertised because Valentine's Day is a big deal in our culture, and it's just pushed in front of us, so much, especially as we kind of come up the home stretch here. Is this a holiday we should get excited about?
We spend billions of dollars on Valentine's Day. It's
You do, or
no.
just everyone?
Yeah, every year spending billions of dollars for Nancy and I to go to buy a yacht.
This podcast is doing better than I thought.
Yeah, luckily we've got a financial episode coming up.
To get us all straight. Here's what I think the good news about Valentine's Day is. I think even when couples are in a tough spot or they're frustrated, there's one time a year that we're required by Hallmark Love and Hallmark Love to say, let's pause, let's stop, let's kind of focus on the relationship, and you kind of do something for your spouse. So I do like that there's a pause. For people that don't typically pause and we're all going a million miles an hour, I think that's a good thing. I get all the arguments against it. Like, hey, I get like, hey, don't tell me what to do. Like, and love should be all year long. I get all that, but I do like the pause of it. I really do.
So what's the tension we feel as Valentine's Day is approaching? And again, Afton and I shared the way that we typically do Valentine's Day, and I do want to dig into that a little bit more and find out what you and Nancy do. But what is the tension we wrestle with as Valentine's Day quickly approaches here?
I think a lot of us are moving so fast so that we really don't know like what's going to speak like love and value to our spouse. And so when the brakes get slammed on by this date, or we start seeing all the, decorations in Walmart in January, like Valentine's Day, a lot of us, again, we don't know what really they want, or we kind of put it off.
It might not be a cockroach.
It might not be a cockroach.
Okay.
And for a while, it was Valentine's Day, and this is where I'll be not a millennial, was, the tradition of Christmas, you put a Christmas tree. The tradition of Valentine's Day was that you would do flowers, candy, a card, and a meal, or one of those combinations.
And
maybe
a
just one.
Giant life-size teddy bear.
Yes, any of those things. That's very general. So you had 4 or 5 things, and then you would start saying, what's the budget? Does my spouse like me to spend money or not? Do they want to eat out that night? But there were just a few categories, and I think what's happened is things have become, especially millennial generation and Pinterest generation, is it's got to be unique, it's got to be special, it's got to be something else, because a lot of times I think people can come in with flowers and candy and their spouse going, wow, that feels really general. Like, I don't really feel like you know me right now. Because if you did, you wouldn't do that.
So is that the Valentine's Day that you and Nancy, have? Or is that the Valentine's Day that you have, spent the first part of your marriage growing up with because you were part of that generation a little bit?
We've always been weird. We've always been really weird. Nancy's always going to bring the dynamic of finances. Like, she's not the girl that likes you to spend money on gifts. And so that can make it, her love language is acts of service.
Yeah.
So that has made holidays and birthdays and Valentine's Day and different things really, really challenging for me. Like, what do we do? And so what's really interesting, at first, though, I would get flowers, but it took me a couple of times to realize that that wasn't really what she was wanting. So she's telling me, I don't spend money on flowers. Spend it on having someone to come clean our house for the day. But something very interesting happened is I was speaking at a marriage event, and the whole thing was going to be that flowers and candy, you can't do flowers and candy anymore and this was kind of the bottom line, to love your spouse intimately, you have to know them specifically. Got to really know what's going on with them. So I went for props and I bought roses. And go, women don't want this anymore, or a lot of women don't. They don't want boxes of candy. They want something special. I came in with flowers, and I opened the door, and my wife, who has told me a million times, don't buy flowers, I think she usually goes, oh, they're beautiful. And I'm like, oh, crap, they're not for you. And they're fake too, right? So they look like a funeral arrangement a little bit, but she gets closer. So it was one of it really actually made the point of the message was that these things evolve. These things change. These things are different every year. And we've got to keep in this relationship where we know each other. And I've never felt more horrible in my life because she got close and they're not lovely up close and they certainly don't smell good. It was one of those moments of, this is it. It's got to be knowing them so you can speak that, and if it is, you've got male and Chinese. Great.
Okay, but here's another thing I think is that, like, originally when you guys got married, Nancy's like, I don't want flowers, I don't want candies, like, don't waste the money. But it might be because they weren't from you. You know what I mean? Like you look at other people doing it and you're like, flowers and candy, whatever. That's so lame. But when you have been with Ted and you're like, that's so thoughtful that Ted did that for me, that changes what the flowers and candies mean because it's a person behind it. It's not just what they are. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. And that could be, some people may love flowers and candy. There may be people that feel like, oh, I love that tradition. It reminds me when I was a little kid, or my mom always got it from my dad. I'm not saying that's bad.
Yeah.
And I'm saying too, if your spouse makes a move in your direction on Valentine's Day and maybe it's a little bit more traditional, or you feel like they didn't spend a lot of time, your role, I think, at that point is to accept that move towards you going all and appreciate that. Maybe talk about it a month later going, hey, next Valentine's Day, can we try something different? But I think anytime someone's making a move in your direction like that and they've come in with flowers and candy, that's not a bad thing.
I think what I'm hearing is that going back to the way that Afton and I have done Valentine's Day with our spouses up to this point, and then what you're talking about with the flowers thing is that we kind of almost reject the general corporate Valentine's Day idea and embrace the unique, specific, I know you Valentine's Day tradition a little bit. And sometimes that does mean flowers. Like I know Terry loves sunflowers, but she would prefer sunflowers on Valentine's Day than roses because I know her. Right. That kind of a thing. Like I can still do the flowers thing because she does like flowers, but I have to be smart enough to know like it's not going to be the bouquet of roses. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
Hudson made me handmade Valentines with watercolors the first year we were going out, and they were Harry Potter themed. And one of them said, "You're a keeper." And it had the Quidditch field on it, which probably makes me sound like a super nerd, but like 80% of people listening to this probably love Harry Potter. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Did you feel love? You knew you loved
I
them.
loved it so much. I wanted to frame the Valentines. They were so awesome.
And why was that so important to you, like in that moment?
I think because Hudson's much better at thinking ahead. Like I'm like, oh, it's Valentine's. Let's get Chinese, and he like spent real time on it. He thought about it. He was creative. Like it was something he made himself. It wasn't like a 5-minute thing. It was like he had to be very intentional about what they said and what were, how he made them.
And I think that's a great point to communicate to this. It's what you're doing, what you're giving them. Is it communicating time and forethought? Or did you come in to the grocery store at the last minute and get the last roses that someone's ran over, with a Zamboni? I don't know why a Zamboni would be in a grocery store, but just in case it was, that's what they look like.
It's cold in there.
It's cold. It's cold in there. So I think maybe it's not the flowers being wrong. Sometimes it's like, oh, I know what you just did. I know what you just pulled off. I mean, because you see it. Go to Kroger Valentine's Day at 5:30. Yeah, you're going to see a lot of desperate men in there.
It doesn't have to be like, okay, you spent 5 hours on something and now I like it. It could just be something that just seems thoughtful. Like if you've only got 5 minutes, I'm totally fine if he had written me if he had gotten a Hallmark card and written something inside of it that was like special or interesting or specific to us.
Great point.
That's just as special as it just has to be that you put some thought into it. Like it's special to the two of us.
Unique to the two of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would you, I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of a left turn here, Ted.
Okay.
So I can hear in the back of my mind, a listener who's maybe like, man, but I just feel so disconnected from my spouse. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to, I'm not going to make, these cards, or I don't even know what flowers my wife likes. what do you say to that husband or wife who doesn't even know where to start because they feel so maybe relationally disconnected from their spouse going into this Valentine's Day?
Well, that's the reason we kind of wanted to do this episode early, to give people a couple of weeks. I guess depending on when you're listening to it, it's going to roll out a couple of weeks before Valentine's Day.
But if you listen to it in March, you've got a big head start.
You have got, and
great point.
One of the things I've been doing the last couple of years is as I go through the year, I will prompt myself for the following year. Like Christmas, like I'll put little notes about, don't forget to do this year. Don't start eating trick-or-treat candy and not stop until January 1st. Like, Ted, don't do that. But I think some of these kind of things, like put a little note in your calendar that says, think about Valentine's Day 3 weeks before, 2 weeks before, instead of the day of, which allows you some margin. And if you are struggling knowing what's going on, just start watching and start listening. Like I have this little note on my phone. Nancy is the hardest person in the world to buy things for. She doesn't like a lot of things. Like she's very, very particular on things. And so when she says stuff, man, I will put that in my phone. Like I've learned long ago not to go buy that woman clothes because she will not keep them. She would take them back. But I heard her say, I love Altered State. She loves that store. So I was like, okay. So I think it's listening, starting to listen. You can also ask some friends. Ask her friends, like, okay, I'm trying to figure something out. We're kind of struggling. Like, what is something I could do? Ask her mom, ask her sister, do a little digging. Just listen. I think it's listening to each other and knowing what matters.
Yeah. And
I think if you are feeling disconnected, I think probably, for me personally, I think the best thing to do for Valentine's would be to just have fun together. Like not put so much pressure on it and make it do like a flowers thing and that seems disingenuous. Like just think of your spouse and what they would like to have fun and just let the evening and the day be about having fun together.
Yeah.
Because that is what connects people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And each couple's unique. Each couple, they say 15% of the flowers that are purchased on Valentine's Day are purchased by women for themselves. So there's something. CJ just got this sad look on his face.
That's very sad.
But it's this, I think what it communicates to is people like to feel honored by someone special in front of, their coworkers or in front of other people, that I'm special too. And so for a lot of people, that obviously matters, that they want to be recognized, that they're loved. Because you think about this, I mean, a lot of times we spend way more time with our coworkers than we do our spouse. And so this is an opportunity to do that, but it is knowing your spouse specifically so you can love them in this way.
Can I just ask this question and like totally just maybe take us off track?
Okay. When does that ever stop?
Like, I have a question. As the woman on this podcast, I feel like it is extremely difficult for the wife to find something for the husband, for the boy on Valentine's. Because like the girl, it's like, I'm going to get her flowers and candies. I mean, that's like your default. Like, sure, I can do that. But like, what am I supposed to do for Hudson on Valentine's that is not girly?
I know what every man on this podcast is thinking.
I don't want to talk about.
I know. I don't want to either.
Thing.
What Ted is talking about is chicken parmesan.
Yeah. Does that work? Let's call it code chicken parmesan.
Don't ruin chicken parmesan.
That should make it better. What are you talking about?
Oh no!
I
can't. I only have one meaning for chicken parmesan, and it needs to be Terry's homemade chicken parmesan.
Okay, so yeah, no, but I think here's the reality.
Yeah,
the reality is for guys, chicken parmesan is a good thing on Valentine's Day. You want to do something else special too, then there's special ways to make that special. So I think for a lot of men, that's how she makes Valentine's Day special. Some guys may want a card. Okay, great.
Yeah, I was thinking more along the lines of like a card, maybe a gift card or something else you could just put in an envelope.
I hear what Ted is saying. So that's one thing. But also, I think it is just finding out specifically what what your husband is interested in, because it is like, I know when Terry makes something homemade and she's like, I'm doing this because I know this is your favorite. I mean, like that's a win for me,
Absolutely.
That's it, or maybe it's that dessert. And I know that's like, oh, that's gender stereotypes, but that's just what our thing is.
So maybe I should just knit Hudson another pot holder.
Are you a knitter?
Well, I knitted one pot holder so far.
So because I know Hudson does a lot
it.
of the cooking, right?
Yeah, he does 100% of the cooking.
Yeah. So maybe he needs a second pot
Maybe he needs
holder.
a second pot holder.
Or maybe he doesn't have to cook one night. Maybe you cook for him.
So we order Chinese.
So you ordered Chinese. Yeah.
Or maybe it's, I know Hudson's into the film stuff, so maybe it's something related to that. But if you're still, stuck, Afton, or if you're a wife or a husband out there who is stuck trying to figure out what to do for your spouse, that's why we're also here to, we have a few ideas. So at a higher level, Ted, do you want to walk us through some other ideas when it comes to figuring out what to do for our spouse, or some creative ways to get specific and be intentional about giving something meaningful to our spouse?
Yeah. So here's just a couple of ideas. Again, I think these are ideas based more on, hey, this is something you're going to spend a little bit of time on. This is something that's going to take a little bit of forethought. Maybe, for some, maybe a week, another, maybe 2 days before. It's something personal. Something doesn't have to be expensive. And so here's some ideas. Some of you are going to need to add your traditions to these ideas because they may not be enough. Some of you are going to have to add a gift, whatever those things are. But here's some kind of fun ideas that I've done for Nancy over the last 10 years.
So you've actually done these, what you're about to share with
And I'm
us.
very glad it's not another set of ideas that you've Googled.
No. Oh, and those weren't super great. Yeah.
If the cockroach idea doesn't work, Ted has actually done these ideas that he's about to share.
So these have been fun. And what's been fun about it is it was almost scary how much she liked them. And it made me realize how unsuccessful I had been in previous attempts, that how much money I'd spent that didn't matter to her. So, and again, this may not work for anybody, but this is kind of fun. There's a website called Fiverr, and it's called Fiverr.com. That's we'll link to it.
We'll link to that in the show notes.
Yep. And Fiverr has people that will do things for $5 that'll do fun things. So I got some guy in a jungle somewhere. I can't remember the country. And I call her Pug. I used to call her Puddin', and it somehow ended up in Pug. I've been calling her Pug for 20 years. And so I have this guy swing on a vine wearing like a toga thing. He swings on a vine. He goes, and he looks on the ground like he's found something, and he rolls it out, and it says, "Happy Valentine's Day, Pug." And he goes, "Happy Valentine's Day, Pug." It made her so happy. It made her so happy. She sent it everywhere. She showed it everybody to work. She loves it. And to the point I was going, I'm never going to be able to top that. Why did that matter to her so much?
For $5.
$5. And everything on this site is $5.
So that is so random. Did you see it and it was like, hey, I'll swing from a vine in a toga costume and for $5, and you were like, that one sounds good.
Yeah, if you go on Fiverr, like in 1 year I did on Fiverr, I send them a picture of our dog, and they made him talk for $5. Like, "Happy Valentine's Day, book." And they sent a girl voice, and I went back and went, our dog's a boy.
Yeah,
Could you
our
come
dog's
back?
a boy.
And so you're getting a $5 product, let's just be honest.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where she loved that as well.
That's funny.
But there's different things on there. For this, I looked on there. There's a guy that will sing you can send him lines, and he will sing back to them like he's in an Italian restaurant. You've got a guy from the Bahamas that'll say things. There's people they'll draw like caricatures of the two of you. So there's just some fun stuff on there. Goofy.
It's a side hustle.
That is a side hustle.
It's a good one. We should figure out what we could put on Fiverr and people will pay us $5 for.
Marriage advice. $5 marriage advice. Not for you, Ted. But
This is what we do on every podcast. You're getting $5 marriage advice right here.
Advice from Afton. $5
Me-
on any subject.
Me yelling an opinion in your face for $5, any subject.
Yes. Afton will say anything to your husband you want her to. Yeah, so that's a lot of fun.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Another one is I took I don't know if you guys will remember these days. Do they still put wedding announcements in the newspaper? Is that still a thing?
I don't know. I haven't seen a newspaper in 25 years.
Right? Is it Robert, our producer's giving his heads up? Okay.
Robert the producer says yes.
Okay.
I've not seen it either, but
This used to be a big deal.
Do they still print newspapers?
They do, actually.
I'll show you one later.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Back in the day of the printing press.
It's like a website, but it was printed.
Oh, okay. A website you can hold in paper. Okay.
A website you can hold.
And it's flammable.
Yes. And it gets black smudgy things in your hands.
Way more dangerous
Sorry,
than an
Ted,
iPad.
I didn't mean to cut
No,
you off.
I love that. So part of, and weddings used to all be the same too. That's another example. Weddings were all the same except for the variation on the ugliness of the bridesmaid dresses. You know, it was the same ceremony, same unity candles and everything. Same invitations.
Unity candle.
The unity candle. But one of the sometimes was that you would put a picture of the bride to be. She would go ahead and get her picture made even before the wedding, and they would, or sometimes they'd do it afterwards, and they would post a picture just of her with details, and they got married in this church. She wore a blah, blah, blah thing. This were her bridesmaids. This was, the best man, this whole thing. So, you'd buy up all the newspapers and you would cut those out and you would save them. So I got one of those and I went to Kinko's. Do they still do Kinko's now? And you can do this at you do it Kinko's or Walmart. And I had it blown up to poster size, like a poster size frame, which was like
the real one of yours.
Yeah, so I took it and it blew it up to poster size. I think it was like $5, speaking of Fiverr. And I probably spent $5 on a frame. And I put it in a frame and I hung it up because you go, where are you going to put that, right?
Yeah.
You don't hang that over the fireplace, right? You've been in my house. She would never go down with that, right? So I hung it up in the laundry room. And so she comes in. She loved it. And it was so stinking cheap. So whatever that picture is, maybe you get a picture of the two of you. You have it blown up. Those things are getting... more and more affordable.
Or your wedding invitation.
Wedding
something
invitation.
Like that.
Oh, you know what? Hudson did. Was it for Valentine's? I don't remember what it was for. I think it was Valentine's. It was our wedding vows, but he made it look like the first chapter of a book.
Oh, that's amazing.
And that's hanging over our bed.
That's cool.
Yeah, and you can go the classier route. I've seen people, people's house the other day, newly married, and they had put like the song from their wedding on two really large canvas type of things. So you could take it from Fiverr level to, spend $1,000, I guess. But
that's cute.
I think it works because it's personal. Mm-hmm. It works because you had to put a little forethought in it. Mm-hmm. Even for her for Christmas, and you could do this for Valentine's Day, I will print out photos from our year and put them in photo albums because, we have all these photos on our phone and on our computer. Mm-hmm. And when we were first married, she was really great about having all these photo albums and very organized and labeled. And so for her, and that could be something you could do for Valentine's Day, printing out photos. Mm-hmm. I know that's another thing. It's like these things that you can touch. It's kind of like a website you can hold. These are like photos you can hold. It's a trip. Have you guys seen it?
Yeah, that's cool.
So,
parents' house.
Yeah, so little Walmart photo service. And here's the thing, you can get 11 by 14s for like $4. I mean, it's crazy how cheap photography is now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it was on an episode of Friends where Monica and Chandler were taking a picture for the newspaper wedding photo thing.
Maybe you could have...
I don't think I ever put that together until this moment. And it was the one where Chandler couldn't smile in photos. It looked like he was grimacing in every single one.
Maybe you could have that blown up and give that to Hudson.
Yes,
the
of
Friends
Monica
one.
and Chandler.
Yeah.
I think he'd really appreciate that. Those are our closest friends.
I think Hudson would appreciate anything he got from
At this point, the bar is so low. If I did the cockroach thing, I'm sure he'd be thrilled.
You've been married for 2 years?
2 years.
Yeah, and you've hardly even set a bar yet. So
intentionally.
This can be your year, Afton. Ted, did you have any other ideas for us before Afton and I keep?
This is maybe a little bit like what Hudson created for you. This one took me a little bit more time. And you guys have been to my house. You've seen it's in the kitchen hanging over the fireplace. I just took I think a 1.5 by 1.5 piece of plywood. I painted it. I cut holes at the top and put big rope through it. And I stenciled on there, printed it offline. You could make stencils.
Yeah.
And it says Hour 5 established 1995. And it did. It took me a little bit of time, but it was totally doable.
That was very crafty, Ted.
Yeah, I don't even know where that came because that's not my jam. I went, oh, I don't know if I know her so well in terms of what she likes or what she points to. And I was kind of scared doing it. I thought, this is going to stink it up. And she's loved it. It didn't, supplies were, I don't know, $10, some rope, some plywood, some paint. And that thing has mattered to her. Like, she loves that thing. Like, she wouldn't even let me take it down at Christmas. Like, we were going to put something else there. And she goes, well, we just need to put things around it because that's our thing. And
that's so cute. Everything Hudson's ever made me is in our guest room.
Is that good or bad?
Bad.
I was going to say, it's kind of like when Nancy will say, you can put that in your office. I always know that's been relegated to.
He did paint me a picture one year, and it was really sweet and thoughtful, but it's just colors. I mean, it's just like a picture of, it's like an abstract color painting. And it's over the bed in the guest room, along with pretty much everything else Hudson owned before we met.
So it's not just stuff he gave you, it's his things that he brought into the marriage.
It's like his actual things, that they're slowly getting replaced by updated things.
Phasing them out.
Now, Afton might be a tough
critic,
audience. Yes. But going back to what you were saying, Ted, I don't know how long that took you. It might have taken you a couple of hours to put that together. I don't even know. But as I'm hearing that, I can almost hear other men saying, like, that's so cheesy, though, or that's like, ugh, that's like, and it reminded me of something somebody told me years ago before I got married. And when it comes to doing stuff for your spouse, if it's starting to feel cheesy, if it's starting to feel like, ooh, then you're getting close. and it's funny, but it's true. Like, something that feels cheesy to me to do for Terry means I'm getting close to something that's going to be meaningful for her, and what you did for Nancy, I don't know if in the moment you're like, I don't know if this is going to work. This is cheesy. This is like plywood and stencils. But to her, it was powerful, and it was specific, and it was for her. And I think that's really what we're getting at here today. So Ted, that brings me to our one simple thing for this week. So you've given us a few ideas. But what is our one simple thing for that spouse who's trying to figure out what to do for Valentine's Day this week?
Yeah, I would just say, what if you created something unique that takes you just a little bit of time? Create something unique that it was you doing it. Whether that's a note, whether that's a card, whether that's going having your wedding invitation blown up, whatever those things are, to take a little bit of time to do that. And I know for some people that gifts are huge, and some people spend a lot of money on Valentine's Day. So if that's kind of your thing, and you have the budget for it, great. But you could add this on top of it. Or if you have a tradition, I mean, like, it might be fun for Hudson. He knows you guys are going to do the, you've got mail in Chinese. It might be fun that there's a card there with it, or there's something, some kind of award for the best film of the year, or whatever those things are. That, speaking of cheesy, she's like, oh.
No, I could write a letter on my computer, and I could print it out, and I could give it to him on a piece of paper.
See, I love that.
Like how newspapers are on paper.
And that's the way you present it to him. Say, look, it's a note I wrote for you, but it looks like a newspaper. Remember those?
Yeah, remember those?
It's like a website you can hold.
Well, and people are still spending billions of dollars on Valentine's Day cards. Yeah. Because there's something about going old school on some of this stuff that feels like, oh, that is cool. It's something I can hold. It's a card.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So maybe go a little old school. What did that is for you guys? I mean, like, you maybe listen to all these ideas going, these are all cheesy. That's great. But just the point is not to copy these ideas. The point is do something that takes you a little bit of time. And for those of you who are going to be gift receivers this year, be good receivers. Like, give them the benefit of the doubt. If they're doing this, if there's some couple, you've both listened to this and husband tries something and you're like, oh dear God, I wouldn't even put that in the guest room over the bed. Let it be in the general population of your house for at least a month before it gets relegated to the garage.
Yes, that's a good idea. Yeah.
because the point of all of this is to, as commercial as Valentine's Day is, what you said at the top of this podcast, Ted, is that the good part about Valentine's Day is it's a chance to intentionally stop in our crazy busy lives and schedules and say, hey, I notice you, I love you, I appreciate you. Here's something specific that I'm giving to you or showing you just to remind you of that, right?
Here's the thing. We're all talk about how we still celebrate it in some way. Mm-hmm. We're just suggesting you do it in a little bit different way and maybe a little bit more special way this time to see what happens.
That's great. Well, that's great. Thank you guys for having this conversation, and thank you for joining us for the Married People Podcast. We hope that today's episode helped you realize that marriage is a little bit easier than you think, and maybe Valentine's Day is a little bit easier than you think. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we would love for you to subscribe to the podcast through your Apple Podcasts app or wherever you're listening to your podcasts. And while you're there, we would love for you to leave us a review. Your review helps us make this podcast better. And finally, for more great resources to make your marriage better, check out Ted's book. It's got lots of great marriage advice, and it's called Your Best Us. You can find it on Amazon, and you can find it on our website, marriedpeople.org. That's also where we will have links to everything we talked about in this episode, including the bacon roses. Maybe that is your thing, and that's great. But we'll have links to everything we mentioned here, except maybe the funeral stuff. That was a little much.
But if somebody listening to this podcast does the roaches or does the funeral arrangement or does the
bacon roses,
please tell us. Tell us in whatever form you send things.
Publish it in the newspaper.
Publish it in a newspaper. Ted will find it there for us. Send it to us on Instagram because I want to know. I want to know so bad if that happens.
Oh, please. If you love us.
If you care about us at all.
At all. They just barely like us. Please
just
do it.
Send us a picture and tell us what happened.
And we're on Facebook at Married People, and you can follow us on Instagram at Married People as well. So until next time, I'm CJ.
I'm Afton.
I'm Ted.
And thank you for listening.